Do we buy into Kentucky, or are they just going to keep on being Kentucky? Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC is here. Will Stein takes over for Mark Stoops, and about as hot of a start as any of us could have expected. They haven't had a single spring practice yet, Gordy, but there has been a transfer portal window, and the Kentucky Wildcats, according to 24/7 Sports, have got the number 11 transfer portal class in the country. Just off the top, how surprising is that to you?
Yeah, I mean, it shows that they did their work and that there's a little youthful exuberance here with bringing in a Will Stein. I always say this about like the young up-and-coming coordinator is when you're a school like Kentucky, if this guy's awesome, he's not going to be there long. But the other side of that is if he's not awesome, he could be there a long time and put you mediocre. You know what I mean? So I'm always of the opinion, go catch a rising star. I had a buddy who covered the Houston Cougars years ago, and when Kevin Sumlin was there, he's like, man, he's not going to be here long. But he had great success. And then Tom Herman was there, and he had great success and jumped to Texas. So, if you're a school like Kentucky, you got to understand where you are. I think Mark Stoops, where he was at his age, when he was having success there, it's like he's not going to leave here. But even still, the rumors of A&M coming after him came up. And then he kind of hit rock bottom again, and it was like, all right, we need to just kind of turn the page here. So I think most Kentucky fans understand you're getting the young, youthful exuberance of a Will Stein, who's a Kentucky kid. Yes, he went to Louisville, but like family and friends that are Kentucky fans and all this. So like he's got enough roots in that state, in that area to make this work. But again, if he's successful, he'll be there 2 years and then jump into the next big thing. But I think if you're Kentucky, you got to be fine with that.
I think there's a stronger chance in today's era because of how the playing field has leveled itself out that he would stay long term, given that he grew up going to games there. There's a Clark Lee element to it, where if he has a lot of success building up a non-traditional football power that is usually elite in another sport, for Kentucky, obviously it's basketball, for Vanderbilt, it's baseball, and all of a sudden they're having a lot of success, his name will get mentioned. Clark Lee was mentioned for Penn State. Clark Lee was mentioned for the Michigan job. He's still at Vanderbilt, though, because he's an alum and he's got the tie. So I think there's a solid chance that if he has success, he does indeed stick around. It's definitely worth monitoring for sure. Now, as an Oregon guy who's covered Will Stein, and Oregon fans, at least online, have their own opinions of Will Stein as a play caller over the last several years. One thing that I have always noted is he's an underrated recruiter. Because Dan Lanning's a defensive guy and Stein was his OC, people always looked at what he did play calling wise and primarily judged him through that lens. But the line of offensive recruits and quarterbacks he brought through Eugene was really impressive over the years. But I still didn't see this coming. Gordy, the guys that they have brought in, including, got to shout out my guy Shane Carr from Southern Utah, who's an awesome guy, and I covered this past year with the Thunderbirds. But they're going out and getting Trey Wisner, or CJ Baxter, rather, from Texas at running back, Lance Hurd from Tennessee. They get Kenny Minchey to say, nah, I'm good with Nebraska. Let me go to Kentucky, which of the two programs on paper, I'd rather be at Nebraska right now. Gordy, and for them to make those high-profile flips amongst many others, I think speaks volumes about their ability to navigate the portal. They've set a very high standard here, but also that people are clearly buying into what they're selling. And if that's literal money sometimes, well, you need that too.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, money talks. They certainly had a big influx of money from donors, boosters, on top of the revenue share. I mean, look, they're going to take a little bit of a bigger of a pie towards the basketball team. There's no doubt, but they made a commitment to the football program, and kudos to Mark Stoops doing them a solid. He did not have to, make it where he didn't have to get his buyout all at once. His contract called to have his buyout paid, whatever it was, first 30 or 60 days of his firing. He said, you know what, it'll be nice. You guys can spread this out over time. They're like, cool, we'll do that. So here's a little money for Mark Stoops, and then here's a bunch of money for our football team this year. So that's kind of how they allocated this thing. But yeah, I mean, Lance Hurd was a guy who started at LSU, was a 5-star offensive tackle, went to Tennessee, was very good there, and said, you know what? Tennessee's not going to pay me more. I'll go get more elsewhere. Kentucky said, here's the money. So that's kind of how this team worked. I keep telling people, this year in college football, particularly a lot of the SEC teams, it's called buy a program year. Like, you're going to have to go buy a program when you go to the spring game or the first game of the season and going, who's number 7 again? Who's 24? Like, it's a whole new team that you got to get acclimated with and get to know. But it's a hodgepodge of talent. Yeah, you get Kenny Minchie, your quarterback from Notre Dame. You get your starting running back, C.J. Baxter from Texas. Wide receiver, Nick Anderson from LSU. I mean, it's just like, it's guys from all over the country. And to me, it's all about the big C word, chemistry. How quickly does it all click? If it takes some time, kind of like LSU last year, if you look at how they had the top portal class, but it took time for them to get going. You go back 2 years ago when Lane Kiffin was at Ole Miss, they had one of the top portal classes. It all clicked pretty quickly for them. Those guys settled in very quickly. So it all kind of depends on the coaching style and, like we said, how quickly guys can settle into their roles. But what I do like for Jay Bateman and the defense for Kentucky is a lot of those guys are regulars that are back. Maybe guys that didn't start last year, but guys who played a lot and got a lot of playing time. So I think you've got a root of a foundation there with the defense. And by the way, Jay Bateman at A&M, their defense has been pretty solid. So I think that was a big get to get him. To me, it's all about the offense. And Joe Sloan, who, it's all in how you look at Sloan. A couple years ago, yes, he was the quarterback's coach with Jaden Daniels. And yes, he was the coach that had Bryce Underwood almost on the dotted line to come to LSU. But I could also look at it and say, yeah, Joe Sloan was also the architect of a really atrocious offense at LSU and got fired midseason. So it's all how you look at it, but he's got some pieces to work with there. And again, I'm not so much worried about Joe Sloan in the offense because I know Will Stein's going to have a heavy hand in the offense and the great success he had there at Oregon. So, yeah, man, it's one of those things where, like, when people are asking, hey, what's the win total for Kentucky this year? I'm like, dude, it could be 8-4, 7-5. It could be 5-7, 6-6. So there's this whole like paradigm where you just don't know. We know the schedule's tough. It's always going to be tough playing an SEC schedule. Now going to a 9-game conference schedule and playing the season finale against Louisville like they always do, it's going to be tough. But yeah, we're going to have to wait to see it in action. I think Kenny Minchie is the big unknown. If he's really good, Kentucky's going to play spoiler and beat some people they're not supposed to.
Yeah, now they're playing a 9-game schedule and a rivalry Power 4 game, like everybody else in the country. Anyway, we don't need to dive into that rabbit hole at the moment. The schedule opens with Youngstown State, so 1-0 for the Will Stein era. Then it's Alabama at Texas A&M, South Alabama, at South Carolina, LSU, at Oklahoma, Vandy. Then it softens a bit, at Tennessee, Florida, and at Missouri before they play Louisville. I think a bowl game would be a great outcome for Will Stein. I think that would be a really strong first season. Maybe he's the Indiana of the SEC. Take a basketball school that's never won, bring over a big transfer portal class, and boom, you go win right away. Well, I have a sneaky suspicion it'll be tougher than that.
I'll just tell you this. I kind of like getting Alabama in week 2 because they're still going to be figuring out things on their own. They're going to have a new quarterback they're settling in, whether it's Austin Mack or Keelan Russell. And keep in mind, Kentucky, what was it, week 2 last year? They played Ole Miss tight because it was Ole Miss was still trying to figure things out with their new quarterback.
And beat Ole Miss the year before.
Yeah, so I think, look, would you rather play Alabama week 2 or in mid-November? I'll take them early and maybe kind of catch them working on some things. So, again, and if they pulled that off, my God, you talk about buy-in from the fan base. Oof. Kentucky fans will be lined up going, Will Stein, how much do you need? We'll write it right now.
Yeah, it's just trying to keep him there in Lexington. Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC. Great as always, my man. We pivot to the ACC, but we go down to the great state of Texas. A sleeper contender that you just can't overlook.